So this is Himuro Mansion.
My brother was in search of someone.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast Review of Fatal Frame. Hosted by Justin, Stuart, and Arnie. But be warned, this episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and strong language. We hope you enjoy the show.
Today we're discussing Fatal Frame, the movie, starring Ayami Nakajo, Aoi Marikawa, directed by Mari Asato. This is Arnie, co-host of Now Playing, hoping you can free me from my curse of reviewing video game movies.
Nope. Sorry. This is Stuart.
Konnichiwa, this is Justin.
Yeah, we're still here in the arcade. Last week we were covering a new Silent Hill. Now we're covering a game that sounds like it was made to be like Silent Hill. I don't know Fatal Frame. I've never played this game, but I guess it came out in the early 2000s on the heels of Resident Evil and Silent Hill.
I have heard of it, and I actually, while I didn't play it myself, my brother had it, and I spent a few hours watching him run through it. So yeah, I have memories of this game. The original one, I think, or maybe it was part 2. They kind of mend together in my mind.
See, I'd heard of this game, and when you said we were doing Fatal Frame, I'm like, I know what I'm in for. Fighting! Mortal Kombat! Fatal Frame, right? It's gonna be the exact same type of thing.
Oops.
And I'd heard of the Fatal Frame series. I just thought when I downloaded this to play that I'd be playing a fighting game, and the next thing I know, I'm in a horror survival game. I'm like, okay, this is not at all what I expected it to be. So I did put in a good number of hours this past week playing the first Fatal Frame PS2 version. It's an interesting game. What I would equate the play to is what you already said, Stuart, Resident Evil. And I think the reason I think that is because you're walking around a big house, unlocking doors, finding notes that tell you the backstory of the bad thing that happened there, and then every so often something jumps out at you and you have to shoot it. What's unique about this is instead of a gun that you're always running out of ammo, which was my experience playing Resident Evil, these ghosts are stopped by you taking their photograph. But you have to take their photograph a lot, and it helps if you take the photo at their head, like a headshot with a gun. And instead of running out of ammo, while I played this week, I was constantly running out of film.
You got to reload that film.
Oh, how cute. Yeah, they actually, it's not digital yet. You didn't even do selfies with the ghost. Okay.
It's an 80s period piece, actually, so there are no cell phones to be dealt with in this or anything, and it's a girl going to an abandoned house looking for her brother, and she finds her mother's old camera that her brother had taken there, and that has the power to stop these ghosts. And it was, though, after the success of Silent Hill that the game creators Makoto Shibata and Kizuki Kikuchi decided they wanted to make the scariest game ever. So Silent Hill is the direct predecessor of this in terms of horror gameplay and what they wanted to make.
I don't have a ton of memories of these games, but the two things that did stick out was that it was a horror and that you had a camera to capture ghosts. Those are the two main points that I remember, so I'm glad that my memory isn't failing me just yet to hear that that's exactly what these games were.
And if you lived in different areas of the world, this goes by different titles. Zero, I think it's known in Europe, or Project Zero. Fatal Frame tells you it's all about the camera. That was the gimmick, is that you're fighting with a camera. and that's kind of unique. And from what I could tell, I watched a few walkthroughs, the stories always change. There's like 5 of these games, and they're all dealing in J-horror tropes, right? Twin girls and creepy mansions and wells and what have you. But the point is, you're always going to be seeing it through the viewfinder of a camera.
As I understand it, like part 3 brings together plot strands from part 1 and part 2. I watched a couple of YouTube videos about the lore of the games before going to this movie, thinking it would matter, and it does not. But I really was more interested on, is the game fun? And so that's why I spent a lot of time playing the first one and trying to get a feel for that one instead of trying to sample all the games in the series. And I did play a little bit of 2 as well, and it's very frustrating. Once you've gone to the city, how can you go back to the farm? Once you've played a PS5 game where you can control the camera and walk in all directions and zoom in all directions, to go back to these old Resident Evil 1 where you walk into a room and the camera is fixed from one angle, and then you walk across the room and now you've got a different camera, and you were pushing up, but now you're walking down because the camera angle changed. It's just a really janky and frustrating early old game mechanic that was hard to play. But the atmosphere was pretty good. The ghosts were frustrating because as you're taking their photo, they fade in and out, and you can only hurt them when they're faded in. And then because they fade out, I'm like, did the ghost die? Am I good? Can I move on? Oh, wait, no, the ghost is attacking me again. And so I just keep taking all these photos and running out of film. And then the camera also reveals secrets, like secret passageways in the house, but you have to take photos. And so it's like using my ammo just to figure out what door I need to go through. And so I'm taking pictures of all this stuff, trying to figure out what's going on and running out of ammo. And, you know, it's one of those where in the old PlayStation, you have a save point, so you can't just save after you beat a big ghost. You have to get back to that save point to do it. It was very retro to play this 25-year-old game, but it was fun, it was atmospheric, and I really liked the mystery and the story that was being told, even if the game mechanics didn't feel unique. It felt more gimmicky that my quote-unquote gun was a camera than it did important.
Yeah, I think some of those limitations of the time frame are what make this game somewhat unique, right? Like, if you had an open world game like this now where you can control everything and depends on where you're standing in the room, you can control the angles and stuff, that's going to change what the director can do as far as jump scares and making sure you're in the right spot for something to jump out and scare you at the right angle or come down from the ceiling or whatever. So it sounds like they took advantage of the limitations to some degree rather than just be hampered by them.
It did. The really cool thing, though, is when you were in the camera view, you could do a 360-degree turnaround in the environment and look up and look down. So you had the camera control through the camera view that I actually wanted the rest of the time I was playing. It was probably very technologically innovative to have that level of camera control in the camera in a game on a PS2.
And what's interesting is it sounds like this game was a hit in North America, which begs the question, why is this movie, when it eventually gets made, basically only released in Japan?
Well, they were going to make an American movie. Spielberg was attached to produce.
Well, DreamWorks had the rights, and Spielberg is very hands-on in any DreamWorks project. He's going to pour over the script, make sure it's something that his company can make money off of. And this is, let's not forget, the early 2000s was prime time to be bringing Japanese horror to North America. Naomi Watts' Ring would have come out the same year as this game, and, we had a whole flood. We've covered the Ju-on Grudge series. There was a whole bunch of that for about a decade where we were inundated with Japanese girls with long black hair coming out of our TV sets.
Yeah, I would have been interested to see what they could have done with it in the States, but the game was a sales success, but it didn't set the world on fire, and it got kind of mediocre to slightly positive reviews in the series. It was much bigger in Asia than it was here, which makes sense. And in fact, for some of the sequel games and spin-off games, They weren't even released stateside. They just kind of gave up on the stateside, and some fans have created English translations to those games. So if you're a fan and American and want to play, you can download these fan-made translation packs and things. But it is an Asian game in story and design. I mean, you're walking around an old Japanese house with kimonos in it and things. There's nothing westernized about the setting of the game. And I think that it just embraces its Japanese heritage. So it does make sense that if there is to be a movie based on this, that it would be a Japanese movie. And that kind of excites me. I expect something different from international cinema. I feel like I know what this movie would be if it was made in the States. I was curious, though, what this movie was going to be coming from overseas. Would it be more J-horror? Would it be more Ring?
You're talking to a guy that's last video game I played was Tomb Raider 2. So I don't know anything about no games in the 21st century, but I do really like J-horror. And when I heard that this movie came out based on a novel, I went and hunted it down. It's free on the web. Someone has helpfully translated what was a novel only printed in Japanese. It's been translated to English and you can find it for free out there. I read that and boy, I got about halfway through it and I'm like, this is a video game? How the hell is The Curse That Only Afflicts Girls, a quasi-schoolgirl lesbian drama, going to be something that people play? I mean, all right, I can imagine how people would play with that, but it doesn't seem like a mainstream game. But let me dial into this. This is not pornography that I'm talking about. This was written by a man who had largely studied manga and written some of his own. I guess it's popular. I don't know anything about Eiji Otsuka, but he is a name brand, and he was commissioned to write a Fatal Frame novel that would serve as the basis for this 2014 movie. And they more or less, it was published a couple months before this movie came out in Japan. What's interesting to me, what immediately grabbed me about it was that in talking about the schoolgirl phenomenon in Japan, when girls collectively get together and there's no boys around, it is considered a developmental phenomenon that crushes emerge. And they don't really embrace sexual identity, I think, the way that we do in Western audiences. It's not seen as LGBTQ. It's much more like you're not mature yet, and you go through this phase, and right before you become an adult, you want to stay regressed, so you're going to be in love with your classmate and not go out into the real world and be with boys. I thought that was really just culturally something I was learning about that was very interesting. And I stopped about halfway through this book and said, okay, I'm going to go watch this movie and some of the game walkthroughs and see how on earth this actually plays as a video game.
So I want to drill into one thing you said there, Stuart. You said that this author was hired to write a book specifically to become a movie. It wasn't that he wrote a book and then they said, oh, that seems like an interesting movie to make. They just, instead of having him write a script, had him write prose and then made a screenplay out of it.
I don't know. There's very little information in English about the origin of this novel, other than it more or less materialized almost simultaneously as the movie, and the book is credited to a man, and the movie's screenplay is credited to the female director. So we are watching in this movie a woman's adaptation, and I would say they're about 80% the same. We'll talk about the ways that they're different, but we're watching a woman adapt something that on the page had more characters and had more violence. It was much more of the kind of J-horror gore that you might expect. Girls are chopped up, and there's a whole serial killer subplot that is not going to be in this movie. This director, you're seeing it through two different creative impulses. The male manga author created the template, and at some point, the female director sort of dialed it into being much more of a kind of gothic romance.
Here's what I'll say to kind of answer one of the questions you had in there, which is how do you take this story and how is it part of a video game series? And what I can say is from my memory of the two games that I did watch people play and then looking into all this, it's not like there's a main character in this series that we follow from game to game, right? It seems like the framing of using a camera to capture ghosts and scary elements is the one thing that comes forward in all these games. So it's not necessarily a story or a character that we're following from Fatal Frame 1 to 2 to 3. It's this device of the camera.
No, and I want to point out this director, Mari Asato, we've seen her work before. She did one of the Ju-on movies, Ju-on Black Ghost. I don't remember the fine details of that movie, but I do remember it involves an unborn twin cursing a lot of different people. And she's done other movies. There's one by location, it was a hit in Japan, about people existing in two different places at the same time. She seems very interested in the themes of twins, and of course that's just a J-horror trope. So not surprising that they would build a story around that device.
Yep, and there were twins in one of the games. 2 or 3 had set around twins.
What's really shocking to me, though, is from what I can tell, all of the games in the main part of the series anyway, I don't know if the mobile game was, but they're all survival horror, exploration, and ghost busting. You capture the ghosts with the camera. They get stuck in the camera. So it's kind of like your proton pack is your camera. And you're using your camera to fight off ghosts that are attacking you and trying to kill you. And one of the funny things is in part 1, the backstory involved a woman being tied up to be sacrificed, and the rooms you're going through have ropes hanging from the ceiling. And when they're like attacking you, the ghosts say to each other, "Get a rope," you know, like they're gonna tie me up and kill me. None of that's here. There is no survival horror, ghost busting. The camera is your weapon of defense. I dare say this is Fatal Frame in name only, because yes, it's Japanese. Yes, there are ghosts, and yes, there is a camera, but
Yeah, there's a boy with a camera, and he was bigger in the novel than he is in the final cut of this movie.
this is almost as good a game adaptation as John Leguizamo and Bob Hoskins' Mario Brothers film. It's about that true to the universe.
That at least looked like it.
But again, you say you're okay with that. We know what Hollywood would do with this. It would make The Ring. It almost could be argued that Asato is making another Ju-on sequel and not trying to follow the template for this game. It's definitely about a curse, and it, in much the way that the Ju-on stories feature various characters through a scattered, non-chronological narrative. I think you get the seeds of that from Ju-on here. But Arnie, why don't you give him the plot? We'll get into this Fatal Frame.
At an all-girls Catholic school, Aya has locked herself in a dorm room for a month. Many of the other girls are infatuated with Aya, especially Kasumi. Kasumi learns about a ritual where, at midnight, if you kiss a photo of the one you love, it will put a spell on them to love you back. Kasumi does this with a photo of Aya. Then the next day, Kasumi is walking through the woods with her friend Michi, and Kasumi just disappears. Michi finds the photo of Aya that Kasumi kissed, and her friends Risa and Itsuki take the photo to the attic for safekeeping. Then all the girls have visions of Aya and suddenly find themselves in the attic by the photo, almost kissing it at midnight. One schoolgirl takes a camera phone photo of the Aya portrait and sends it to the other girls. Then suddenly in school, a mass fainting spell impacts most of the school children. Determined to find out what's going on, Michi starts to kiss the photo, but Aya comes out of her room and stops her. Aya says the photo is not of her. They seek out local weirdo and photographer Mari, who tells the two that the story of the kissing of the photo at midnight came from a time decades ago when lesbianism was forbidden. Many girls would come to a secret photo studio to have portraits taken, and then each would kiss the other's portrait at midnight. It was kind of like a going steady ritual. But due to the stigma around homosexuality, many of those couples made suicide pacts. 2 of the girls went to a local reservoir to drown themselves, but one of the girls chickened out at the last second and watches her lover die. Mari says the curse started there, with the survivor being haunted by the ghost of her dead lover. Mari's young son, Susumu, is a budding photographer who claims to have taken photos of the ghostly spirit. Then a slew of schoolgirls turn up drowned. Michi kisses the photo of Aya's doppelganger to find out what's going on, and Aya follows Michi as she sleepwalks into the forest. But Aya is attacked by Takashi, the school's mentally handicapped gardener and brother of nun Mayumi. Aya is thrown in the reservoir where the lesbian died years ago, and that surfaces a repressed memory. Aya had a twin sister, Maya, and when they were sent to the Catholic boarding school, the school's headmistress said one of them had to die. See, the headmistress was the lesbian who decided to not kill herself, and she thought sacrificing one of the twins to the reservoir would dispel the ghost of her dead lover. So the photo was a photo of the ghost Maya, who has haunted the school, not of Aya. Meanwhile, Mayumi attacked Michi and tried to drown her. Mayumi thought her mentally handicapped brother killed Maya all those years ago, and in the intervening years, Mayumi has drowned any girl who went to the reservoir lest they implicate Takashi. With the cops on the way, Mayumi drowns her brother and then herself rather than get arrested. Michi then goes and rescues Aya from the reservoir. The two girls graduate, and Michi is going to a photography school in Tokyo. Aya asks Michi to take one more photo of her, but when Michi looks through the lens, she sees a half-dozen ghost students. She won't take the photo, but promises to come back someday and take Aya's picture then, as credits roll.
Hearing your plot summary, it made me wonder, how did you guys see this movie? It's not really widely available, commercially speaking. I just went to YouTube and I saw the translation that was there. And your version of this makes me wonder if we heard different words at different times in the movie.
I think we watched the same version, Stuart. I found it on YouTube, and it starts with almost an apology about the translations of how this is beta software. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, hopefully this is not way off then.
There are widely different translations because when I wanted to review some stuff, I went out to those subtitle sites where you can just download subtitles files to use on your Plex server and things, and I found some very different translations, but I'm curious what you saw that was different from mine, but we'll go into it.
Yeah, that's why we have the rest of this show. I've already mentioned, obviously, the heavy influence that Ju-on would be having on this plot, but boy, there's another one that kicks in right away. Almost note for note, Goblin could sue. I love the movie Suspiria. We've covered it, the original one. And note for note, when we have this opening dream sequence, they stolen that hook. The thing that plays over the girls' school of witches in that Italian splatter movie is more or less the same score that's going to play over this movie.
It is a good score. I don't know Suspiria well enough to have caught the tune, but I did know I liked this music.
Yeah, Goblin is a great rock band. They have interpreted many of Argento's films. I think most of them, actually. Clearly, this director loves it, too. I can't blame her. It's a great score, but it's not hers.
I listen to the Demons Goblin soundtrack quite regularly while I work. So, yeah, I know Goblin. I just don't go back to Suspiria for anything.
Yeah, but you're right. It's setting a tone, visually and sound-wise. It's very atmospheric. Almost all of the imagery here feels dreamlike and blurry, and the music is helping that along, too. And I think that's going to be throughout the movie. I'm not sure when we're in a dream, when we're in the real world dealing with real people. It's going to be a real issue for me, actually, throughout half of this movie.
Mm-hmm. I think it is a challenge, probably. Translation also contributes to confusion. But what we see here, the opening tells us, there's a girl named Aya who is being haunted by herself. That coming out of the water is something that looks just like her and seems to want to pull her down below the surface at midnight every night. And what I think we understand in the movie, but is different in the book, is that she feels cursed, and so she makes the choice to isolate, to stay behind closed doors, and not infect her fellow students. And that, much to their chagrin, she's not going to socialize for fear it's going to infect them. Is that how you guys understood her isolation?
I was confused for a while, Stuart, and I know you had the advantage of reading some of the books, so maybe you knew where this was going, because for a good chunk of this movie, I just assumed Aya was dead and not in her room. The school was covering it up or something, because we don't see her other than in flashbacks. Her door is shut, and we see teachers trying to bring her food and talk that she hasn't been seen by anybody in a month. I assume this girl's dead.
I agree, Justin. I thought for sure she was a ghost, and that's why people were seeing ghostly visions of her, is she was dead. I didn't know why teachers would go along with this. By the same token, I don't know why teachers wouldn't break down the door of a student in a month. I mean, you might give it a few days, maybe a week, but by day 8, I don't think she's showering. I don't think she's using the communal toilet. She's locked in that room, so she's probably going full on Howard Hughes and peeing in bottles and not showering. I think that somebody should get involved somewhere there, so I just thought she was dead. Later on, when they're like, I want to take a picture of her through the window, but she's not coming to the window. I'm like, yeah, because she's a corpse.
Yeah, and even if she's not camera ready, right? She'd be looking real bad.
That's a major bedhead.
Yeah. Headhead, long fingernails. Yeah, if she's not dead, she's doing a great impersonation of it.
Yeah, she was doing the COVID thing before it was cool.
Yeah. I get why you would have that impression. I do think we are to have this mystery about who is this girl and what is her power. What we mostly understand by cutting around and seeing all these other schoolgirls is that they're kind of in love with her, that all of them are kind of obsessed with this girl. This is the most popular girl in school, and they love her, and all they can think of is we're about to graduate, and we put it all on this girl to sing the solo at the graduation ceremony. There's this big deal being made about an Ophelia solo, as if Hamlet was a musical. I don't remember that part.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
I had to wonder if that was a Japanese version of Hamlet. Like, Swan Lake didn't start as a ballet, did it?
I mean, there was folklore to support it, yes.
Yeah, but everybody knows the Russian ballet version, so I just wondered if somebody had taken this Hamlet story. But it's funny that they rarely mention Hamlet. It's all Ophelia, and I know my Hamlet. I'm like, I know how she died.
Yeah. Let's dial into that because I think it's important. She has, by the way, popped back up into pop culture. Taylor Swift's big song from her last album was The Fate of Ophelia, and people probably have an awareness of Ophelia as being this standout character in Hamlet. I think that lots of people latch onto her because, depending on your reading of that play, she was either manipulated and gaslighted by her father and her lover into killing herself, or she's kind of a feminist icon who protested all of that and made the choice to die rather than continue being a pawn.
To add to my confusion at the beginning of this movie, beyond who's this Aya, is she dead, is she alive, or whatnot, it feels like our point of view character for a good chunk of the first third of this movie is a character called Kasumi, who she's the one who's talking to us and talking about Aya and giving us information that Aya's been in her room for a month and she wants to catch glimpses of her. But she's not going to even be our main character. She is one of the first victims of what we're about to talk about. So for the first half hour of this movie, I'm not sure who we're supposed to be following, who we're supposed to be caring about, or what is going on.
My sympathies for you. I assume that you have seen none of the Ju-on movies or maybe even The Grudge?
I've seen The Grudge, I've seen The Ring, but none of the Ju-on movies.
Okay. Specific to Ju-on, it was sort of the gimmick of it was that you would follow a story and think, oh, this is the main character, and then they'd be killed, and then we're just cut to another chapter, and we see a different character. And it was really an ensemble, and you could make the argument that there are many major characters, not one. It's not supported by one final girl who's going to take us to the end of the film. They're meant to be these confusing, sort of intertwined, interlocking stories.
Yep. I mean, this is my confusion early on as the movie plays on. I think it plays into the strengths of the movie to have this confusion early.
I agree, Justin, but I had a problem, and I don't know if either of you did, telling the girls apart. They're all Asian girls, approximately the same height, wearing the same school uniform. One has short hair, and the rest all have basically just below the shoulders length hair. And so I'm glancing at the screen and reading subtitles, trying to grasp hold who is in this scene, who is in that scene. It does even out. When it gets just down to Michi and Aya, it's better. But this first 30, 40 minutes is a lot of different girls, and I'm like, wait, who's kissing the photo now?
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is they're not saying proper names. So you're not even able to, like, once I see a face, that's your name. I agree with you. They don't make it easy. It helped me a lot to have read the book and to know the names and be like, okay, this must be the one that's going to do that. I had read the first half of the novel by the time I was watching this movie, so I knew what was going on. I knew that Kasumi, as you say, Justin, is sort of the one that is most damaged by Aya's disappearance. She is not eating. She's thinking about her. She mysteriously has a photograph of her that she's going to keep pinned up, and she's going to want to kiss it at midnight. I don't know that this comes off in the movie, but the book made explicitly clear Aya would not allow herself to be photographed. So it is a mystery as to how this girl even got a photo of her.
I don't know that played in the movie at all.
No, I didn't either. And especially since she was hiring girls to stand outside the window and try to get photographs and things, I thought that it was just through that method. Again, I didn't get anything about Aya herself as a character, except, yes, this Kasumi seems to be in love with her, but everybody seems to be in love with Aya. Like,
yes,
it's a weird school-wide homosexual infatuation, and it was strange to me that, like, every girl wanted to kiss that photo, to the point that I felt like some might just be bandwagon hopping, like, it's cool for all these girls to want to kiss Aya, so I'm gonna go along with it and try to kiss Aya's photo.
Yeah, I felt like we might be watching some sort of cultural thing that wasn't translating, like a la Mean Girls or something for a while here, you know? Like, she was the hip, happening hot girl that everybody wanted to be like or be with. And, I mean, I think that's sort of what they're trying to say, but I think mostly it's because of this curse that we keep hearing whispers about.
Okay, two different things. One, the book, part of what makes it harder to follow is that there are different girls with different crushes on different girls. And so there are several areas that you could dial into. They have simplified the movie by making it all about Aya. And I think that is a wise choice. I will also say that the reason why everyone is having this infatuation is in fact supernatural. Since her arrival, because it was done under supernatural, we'll talk about how she showed up at the school, these kids like her without control. They're obsessed with her because of the magic that's going on in the school. You'll notice when they cut back and there's a scene of they're like, I nominate you to sing the solo. And she's not like happy about this. She's never wanting the limelight. Again, she doesn't want them to take their picture. She's not social. She's not doing anything to be cool or popular or inclusive with these girls. If anything, she's always withdrawn from these girls because she finds their fascination with her predatory.
Okay, I didn't get that. I got that she didn't want to sing and walked out of the room for some reason, but when we do see her sing that Ophelia thing, first of all, I thought, she's an amazing singer. I don't know if that's the actress singing or if they did a voiceover and had a real singer going, but it's a really well-sung song, and so I'm like, she does seem like a superstar. She seems like a really talented singer in this class, and I thought that might be why she was so popular, and I thought she was outgoing. So when she refuses to sing the song, I took that as a sign something had changed. I didn't get any of what you're describing about her character.
Okay, well, hold that thought as we get further into the mysteries and the differences between book and movie. We'll try to parse off why it is that all these girls are so Aya obsessed. But Kasumi is fan number one. She has the photo, or she thinks it's a photo of Aya. We'll find out it isn't, but it looks like her. She keeps it pinned up. And yes, there is this rumor that goes around, and I think this existed beyond the book. I think, again, this is a cultural phenomenon in girls' schools in Japan, that there's this curse. You keep using the word homosexual, and I think you'll never find that in the translation that I had, and I don't think it's conceived in that way here. This is not a sexual attraction at all. This is a regression. These are girls that they don't want to be women, and so they fall in love with other girls to stay young.
Well, there's also some talk of arranged marriage too, right? And
yes,
girls that they would rather be with somebody they actually liked I think you're right, Stuart. I didn't read any of this as sexual. I got the crush thing and I got the girls loving each other, but you're right. It's not erotic. It's not sexualized.
No.
It's literally, regression. It's girls before they become women. And I almost thought that where the story was going was going to be a journey into womanhood, right? Like Aya was in her room because she had her first period or something. And when she emerges, she's now a woman.
Mm-hmm. The curse. Yes.
And the school headmaster says something like that when she talks about Aya has gone into her cocoon and you must have a death before womanhood, a metaphorical death where, you go into the pupa stage and, emerge the butterfly of womanhood. And no, I'm not saying this movie's erotic, but they keep talking about your true love and I love this girl and these couples that would kill themselves to be with each other because things weren't accepted back then.
No, it's not that we won't accept our love. It's that we don't accept adulthood. And so we're going to die together as children.
Okay, that's not how I took it.
Okay, but I think in reading the book, that is what is helpful about this perspective. I don't think Japan is comfortable with LGBTQ issues. And it would be very bold for them to try to tackle this. Again, they conceive it in the way that Freud conceived it. That this is about regression. That people get stuck in a developmental stage and they might like same sex because they haven't matured enough to learn what the opposite sex is. Anyway, yes, that headmistress really reveals herself to be a creep. Anybody that has a giant Ophelia painting in their office is talking about girls have to die before they can become women. Very obviously telegraphing us who the villain of this piece is.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of characters introduced, and up to now we're following Kasumi. And this is where I'm going to agree with Arnie at the risk of sounding like a middle-aged white guy and not being able to tell some of these Asian girls apart. But two girls sneak out of school, and I'm not sure if one of them's Kasumi or not, or if these are just two random girls now that we're supposed to be following. But they sneak off to town to have lunch, and they meet up with Miss Mary, who seems to be somewhat older girl who we don't know much about other than the fact that she dresses kind of fun.
Okay, Risa and Itsuki are who you're talking about, and they are two random characters that are not even in the novel that obsessed with Aya. They are obsessed with each other. The way that Kasumi is into Aya is the way that Risa is into Itsuki. And you'll see her being like, you can be the only one that can paint my nails, right? Like,
right.
I don't have the ability to be pretty. And she's the one that's engaged to a rich guy. But she says, but I'd rather be with someone I love, and talks about Aya. Right? Like, I'm nominating Aya. So again, I don't want to think about growing up and marrying a man. I just love that girl that can sing so pretty. And that's what love is to her in this moment. The book would go into much greater detail about their obsession with each other, but they're here for kills, right? They're going to be knocked off. We need a body count. As the curse spreads, they'll be taken out. Miss Mary is a former student. Or rather, she is, the way the book called her, a local celebrity. Someone that had involvement with the students of the school, has lived in this town, and I think is just known for being colorful and weird, and probably deserving of her own reality show.
Well, the movie goes out of their way a couple times to have her say that she didn't go to school there.
Yes,
but
right.
Everybody seems to think she did, so I wasn't sure if that was some sort of joke that I wasn't getting.
She will mention that she knows about this curse. She went to public school, but she had a crush on one of the girls that went to this private school as well, and they actually tightened it up to make it about the nun that we'll meet later. But yeah, I don't want to get too deep into the novel because this movie will take a hard turn away from that in terms of motivations towards the end.
But you're right, mostly we are introducing characters so we can have a body count here in a little bit. We're introduced to some suspects as well. We have a scene where the girls are out gardening and a man finally appears. It's the first time we've seen a man in this movie, I think, outside of maybe in the background. And he's got kind of a gimpy, scary walk. One of his legs doesn't work very well, and he doesn't seem to speak either.
I couldn't tell at first if there was something wrong with him or if he was just quiet. He's the brother of one of the nuns there, and he's got a green thumb, she says. He's one of the gardeners on the grounds, but I couldn't tell because he doesn't speak or do anything. Is he just socially awkward and uncomfortable around all these schoolgirls, or is he mentally handicapped? But I read online he's mentally handicapped.
I think actually little of all the above is the right answer on that.
Yeah, one, this is just a trope. You'll find it in Jane Eyre. You'll find it in Suspiria. There's always a creepy male, right? In an all-girls environment, the creepy male, what is he doing here? He represents the threat of the opposite sex. Yeah, the only male here. What is he? What does he want when he looks at these girls? What is his intention? If you read the novel, and this is not one of the better parts of the novel, you will learn his backstory. He actually had a girlfriend named Ophelia, and they were out riding bikes and were run over. And after that point, he experienced cognitive and physical. The reason why he's limping and intellectually disabled is because of a car accident. And he has his own curse. Again, it gets so complicated with the novel. And this is just not very good stuff. I think it's fine the way that they include him here. We have a few scenes of him basically kind of implying incest, right? That he and his nun sister sleep in the same bed. She's always like wanting to rub him and massage him. And
yeah, they're spooning.
Yeah, you get the sense that God would not love this, right?
Yeah, I love that scene of the nun going to bed and she takes off her habit and I see a guy's foot in her bed. And I'm like, well, there's like priests, but then there's other ministers who wear the collars but get married and things.
Yeah.
So does Japan have nuns who aren't celibate? Is this a boyfriend? Oh, wait, that's her brother. This is all very weird.
Yeah, there's no precedent for that. No precedent for having your brother in your bed and spooning. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I wonder if that was supposed to play culturally as, oh, it's innocent, or if we were supposed to be creeped out by that.
No. It is creepy, and if you read the novel, it's even creepier. But this nun is a major difference on film from the way she comes across in the book. In the book, she is a supervillain. And here, I think she's just kind of misguided.
But I thought this brother was the bad guy. This is a red herring that I fell for because it is the one male here.
Yeah.
Yep. And we'll talk about that when we get to the end, but I think this movie cheats quite a bit right up until the very end in that aspect.
Yeah, there's also another little boy running around who's nameless and pre-sexual, right? He's a child. He's not even interested in girls. Some other boys are like, do you have pictures of girls changing clothes? He's not that kind. He is running around, keeping a scrapbook, seemingly taking pictures of empty pools and empty riverbeds and empty yards and such, but claiming that these photos have a ghost in them. And I guess that this is
our tie-in to the game.
Yeah, we're attempting at this moment to say we're a Fatal Frame adaptation.
Yeah, I mean, it should be said that a character that we have met and will start to hang out with more, Michi, is a photography student as well. She's been carrying a camera around. We've seen a few shots through a lens and stuff like that. But before we get too far away from it, we are about to lose our point of view character here. We've been following Kasumi up to this point, and her and Michi go walking off from this gardening day at school and end up on a path in the woods. They're talking. There's voiceovers about this curse, so we're getting talk of this curse and Aya and all that stuff. And then out of nowhere, Kasumi just disappears. Now we do have somewhat of a mystery going on. It's no longer just, why is this one girl locked in her room? Now we have a missing child.
And I felt like, again, we had two missing children. I felt like Aya was missing. I didn't think she was really just holed up. But I did like this scene where Katsumi just disappears, but her hat is still there. And Michi didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. I thought this was an effective beginning of horror.
Yeah, I think it teases a good mystery the disappeared girl vanished in front of her eyes. Where could she have gone? There's a search party that forms and they could go through the forest leaf by leaf and turn up nothing. And so we know that this is all supernatural. We had already had this sort of teased when those other girls had gone into the city and met Miss Mary. They heard about this curse that we saw her participate. If you kiss a photo of someone 100th of a second before midnight, you are putting a spell on them. That means that they're going to love you and you're going to be together even in the afterlife. And so maybe that's where Kasumi has gone. Wherever Aya has gone, she's gone with her.
Right, this is where we start to learn a little bit more about this curse that they've been talking about, because basically Michi is almost a detective at this point, right? She goes into Kasumi's room and finds this picture of Aya, and I think this is where we first hear about the kissing at midnight trope.
Well, we first heard about that from Mary earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's been teased. Those girls were talking about it. In the auditory soundtrack, sometimes we're hearing whispering of girls and not really seeing what they're being said. But the idea is that it's a rumor. It's just something, like Bloody Mary or whatever. In all classrooms forever, young girls are going to have this thought about a curse that's going to make them bound to each other.
But when they find this photo, I thought that was another spooky scene because it's dark and it looks like you're seeing the disembodied ghost head of Aya. It's pale. Then I'm like, wait, is it a projection? Like a slide projector? Because Michi walks up to it and starts to touch it, and it just seems to be the wall. And then I'm like, oh, it's a photo. But at first it had me thinking it was a ghost.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a defective, I wouldn't call it quite a jump scare, but the way that it's framed, she's going through drawers, not looking behind her. She's being watched by this phantom girl that everyone's obsessed with. Yeah, it's a good tease, and it's that slow boil, that J-horror slow boil, a ghost movie. It's not a slasher movie. Yes, girls are going to disappear, but not in bloody ways. It's not the point that they get killed in gruesome Ju-on ways. It's the idea of what power does Aya have over these girls? Why is she making them disappear? When Michi, now that she's gone down this path, is in an English class, suddenly she's seeing Aya when no one else is, standing in the doorway, coming to her, making her stand up. And we think, again, this is the big tease that they do probably a dozen times in this movie of she leans in and we think she's going to plant that kiss of maybe death on her. And she ends up whispering in her ear, "Save me from the curse."
Yes, free me from the curse. And like you said, that's going to happen several times. And this is where the movie does start playing with some of these dream sequences, right? We're not sure if Michi is dreaming or if this is actually happening or if she's daydreaming. But the way the movie portrays it, she's in these instances. She's in the classroom and now she's face to face with Aya. And then she wakes up in her room and the picture of Aya is there with her. So as viewers get a sense that, okay, some of this is dreaming. Some of this might be some lucid visions. But as of right now, I don't think we're watching a real ghost story. This might all just be in someone's head.
And I thought we were seeing a ghost story. But what I was wondering is, when am I going to see a fatal frame? When do the ghosts start attacking and you need to use the camera to defend yourself? I was waiting for it to go to the angry Ju-on ring kind of places that it will never go. So with all of these times, Aya keeps showing up and says, "Free me from my curse." By the fourth time, I'm like, can we at least figure out what the curse is and move on from this plot beat? I liked the imagery. I liked that the girls, are they sleeping? Are they awake? Are they in class? Are they in the attic? What's going on with all of this? But I felt like it was moving a little slow and lacking in the horror aspect.
Yeah, I don't know that this is a horror movie. This feels more like a supernatural drama. Again, the tension is, oh, are those girls going to kiss? And the tension is, we're going to graduate and we don't want to leave Aya. This whole tension about leaving childhood and wanting to stay a girl, it's there in the subtext. And I do think that they play with it a lot with these different girls. Now they're all coming together. Earlier, the ones that did school are helping this Michi as she's fainting now and becoming more and more seemingly possessed by the photo. They're all coming together and trying to help her. They think that if they put this photo up into the attic, there's like a little church altar up in the upper part of the dormitory, that will protect both them and save that photo for when Kasumi returns.
Yeah, a few things are happening now, right? The curse seems to be spreading. More girls are getting involved here. And to Arnie's point earlier, the adults are finally doing something. We have one girl that apparently is locked in a room, and now we actually have a missing girl. So the adults are now going to be patrolling the school and checking in on everybody hourly.
Yeah, that headmistress, again, if you weren't suspecting her before, she's looking at a black and white photo of two little girls on her desk and saying, it shouldn't still be happening. Like, she knows what's going on, right? Whatever is going on with these girls now lies at her feet.
But then again, that could also play as she's seen this craziness in young girls before. Why is this happening again? Not necessarily a supernatural event happening.
Yeah, but I knew that was her in the photo, right? As soon as she looked at that photo, and I'm like, oh, okay, so you were the first one. That just felt telegraphed to me.
I wasn't sure who it was. I knew it was her or the nun with the brother, though. I wasn't sure which one. I was leaning more towards the nun with the brother because we just spend more time with her. But the headmistress did have that weird, you must die and come out a woman type speech. So
Yeah.
I kept going back and forth.
Okay, I did not waffle. When the headmistress is like, I want my girls to die, I'm like, you're the one. Anyway, yes, we have these weird fake out scenes. We have a girl brushing her teeth and seeing ghost Aya in the mirror, and then where am I standing? And yeah, it sort of goes in and out of subjective states. They have a little bit of, Elm Street kind of fun with, are we in a dream or are we in reality?
But it's also helping us as a viewer because now it's happening to more of the girls and they are actually coming together and speaking about it out loud. So we know it's not just in our head, it's not just in their head. They're experiencing the same things here. They're all seeing Aya around the school.
My favorite one is the one where I don't remember which girl had this vision, but she ends up in the pond and Aya is walking on the water like Jesus. I thought that one was cool. And then Aya leans down. Is she going to kiss her? No, lift my curse. And then she wakes up and she's in that attic with the photo. And then another girl pulls her back from kissing the photo and she almost kisses the photo herself. It was a good moment.
Yeah, the girls know about the curse as a rumor. The only one that wanted to do it was Kasumi, but the other ones wouldn't want to kiss the photo, but they get tricked into it, right? This is what happens. Itsuki was trying to run away. She runs from choir practice to, into this pond. And remember, Ophelia, that's how she died. She went mad and threw herself into a river. And sure enough, that's where she gets snatched here. By the end of it, we're going to see this little boy, Sasumi, going to take more pictures down by the river and finding 5 dead bodies, right? It's not very clean who they are and what happened, but we get the sense that now 5 girls are dead and more are feigning, and it's really an epidemic. The headmistress is having to put them all on lockdown.
I love the scene where they all pass out at once. That one was kind of cool. It felt like an escalation, which is weird because the movie's going to de-escalate after that.
Right, no, it was a cool scene. Like, we're in a chapel and all the girls in their school uniforms and the headmistresses and the nuns at the front, and then Aya floating above all, almost Christ-like, with her arms spread and slowly floating over the crowd as the girls faint. It was a powerful scene, I thought.
Agreed. You're correct in saying the movie changes after this point. De-escalation, I guess it is not going to deliver the gory, bloody body count J-horror ring Ju-on that you might expect. But to me, it becomes more focused, right? Like what happens is Michi basically, she goes to the funeral and you can just see the weariness on her. She's ready to submit and give in to the visions too and just say, take me. You're going to get us all. I give up. And this is when we meet the real Aya, right? The real Aya comes out of her room. We find out she's a real girl and she's like going to snatch the photo away before this girl kisses it at midnight and say, this is not even me in the photo. No one took this photo of me. And it creates a new mystery and a new focus for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and we see the police come through here and they're investigating because of the dead girls, and I think they just brush it off as a mass suicide, so they're not really going to do too much of an investigation. There's not going to be a presence of them at the school. There was an earthquake at the same time this was going on, I believe. I mean, couldn't really be sure if that was dreamlike or really happening because the perspective was we just kind of saw some trees shaking.
Mm-hmm.
But the earthquake will come back again later, so I think we can pinpoint what it is after a while, but here it just seems like a natural event happening at the same time as a supernatural event.
Yeah, it feels like the whole town is being impacted by what's going on in this cloistered Catholic girls' school. Now, Aya is a main character. We can know and even trust her. I like the next moment because Michi's in the English class again and she sees Aya in the doorway. And for a second, we're like, is that ghost her again? Or, oh no, that's really her. They can go and have a Nancy Drew adventure. They run off to where people have a smoke break and find Miss Mary. And this is where we get a lot of data dump. This is where I think a lot of what we're going to understand about this movie's conception of the haunting is going to get unfolded here when she takes her home and explains her house is a former Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Photo studio, not like a former Adobe software package.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for clarifying that.
Or a Fox photo mat, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
they took portraits there, is what we're trying to say.
Right.
I don't know if I'm missing something here, but when she invites them into her house, she takes off her wig, and it's like, oh, she has a wig. Why does she have a wig? She just works at a factory. I don't understand this character, but I don't think we're supposed to. I think she's just supposed to be quirky.
Yes. She's too big for the town. This is a pretty conservative town, and when she's working, they're all wearing white jumpsuits. And for some reason, she insists on wearing wedding dresses and, blonde hair and big jewelry and makeup and all of that. The book actually made a point. They saw it as growth, that by the end, she decides to be a conservative mother and put aside all of her costuming and just attend to her son. But she is the mother of Sasumi,
Yes.
the boy taking the photos.
She gives us all the information, the backstory of the two girls who were, and in her story, it does feel like maybe they were lovers. I don't know. I mean, from Stuart's reading, that makes more sense. But from watching the movie, I got the sense that these two women were lovers that knew they couldn't be together. So they had a suicide pact. They were going to go drown themselves in a lake because they couldn't be together here. So they were going to promise to be together in the afterlife together.
Well, one thing that I think is culturally important to realize about Japanese schools in general is that they have a very high rate of suicide. That's the reason why we have so many movies about young girls being killed and Suicide Club and all of that stuff is because it's almost, I hate to use the word expected. The pressure that is put on the young generations to compete at a high level and to excel and to become, particularly being women too. I mean, I think that's a society where men are prized. I think that, yes, there is a pressure about them facing the future. I don't know that you have to see it that they love each other. You just get the sense that they don't want to go on. And that this whole lake, in some ways, in the book, it was very lyrically described as a lake of tears of all the girls who did not want to go on.
I'll say this. I would like to have seen a little bit more of that pressure from school and expectations in this movie. Because the way this school reads to me is it's almost a finishing school. They're learning gardening. They're having some English lessons. They have singing. It's not like they're, busting down hard chemistry and,
Good point. Yeah, good point. I think you're right.
The only thing that made me think it was like chemistry and things is when those two girls play hooky. They're like, we're never going to use any of that stuff they're teaching us. Well, you only think that about like trig, right? You don't think that about singing or photography class.
Indeed, these girls are talking about going off and being pop stars and all, and one of them will by the end. So yes, you're right. The messaging is a little unclear. One thing that you might also notice here is that when we see this flashback about the original girls that went into the lake, they are dressed in classic Japanese, not modern. Like, this is an important detail in the book that I don't think is in this movie, but in the book, the headmistress is over 100 years old. This happened a century before, and the way that they're dressed would tell you that.
Yeah, that plays. It definitely felt traditional and of a time prior to this. I mean, obviously everything's in the past, but it felt like years before.
Yes, 100 years ago, two girls decided, for whatever reason, you can assign the motive that makes sense for you, that they're going to die together in this lake, and one survives, and the other, and I don't know if the movie tells us this, the book most clearly does, the other girl resents her for living and gives the first curse.
I think that the movie tells us this at the very, very end, not necessarily at any point where it would make sense to help us understand what's happening in the movie.
I think we got it from Mary. When Mary is telling the backstory there, she tells of how all these pairs of girls had suicide pacts, but two went, and the way Mary says it is different than what we're shown. What she says is, one girl survived, making it sound like she tried to drown herself, but didn't succeed. But when we see it, we see she didn't even try. She chickened out and didn't jump in the reservoir. But Mary tells Aya and Michi about how one lover died, one lover lived, and the ghost of the dead one haunted the living one. That's where the kiss at midnight became a curse instead of just a promise ritual.
Yeah, and I want to underline something that the book does that is very different from the movie. That dead girl is so mad at the headmistress that she's cursing her to live forever. You're not going to ever die and be with me. Because if you didn't do it then, I don't even want you anymore. And I'm going to make you live forever and watch other girls kill themselves. That is your punishment for not jumping in the lake with me. Anywho, back to our main two girls. They're weirded out by all of this data dump, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It does seem to trigger something. When they meet the little boy and he says, yeah, I photographed you, or at least what I thought was you, down by the river. They go down by that river, and memories are coming back to Aya about her arrival at the school. That it was very cloudy, and now it's coming back to her that she and some other girl came at the same time, and that she witnessed a death. And we have these quick flashes of her as a child, a 7-year-old, reaching into the lake, trying to help a little girl out of the water.
Yeah, so some of the dream sequence that we saw at the very beginning of this movie is starting to come back here, and we're being shown that, yes, this is Aya's dream, but it's not necessarily a dream, it's a repressed memory that she hasn't been aware of.
Right. How could I be trying to save myself from drowning? We're getting right there up to the gate of no one's quite said twin yet. I'm wondering if you guys had figured that out, that yes, there's another girl that looks like her. That's the ghost of her is what got the photo. And so she never did pose for that photo that Kasumi kissed. Kasumi got enchanted with a dead girl.
I did not come up with twin until the movie showed me a twin.
Okay.
I maybe just wasn't thinking J-horror enough, but I did not come up with this at all.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, you're not, nothing on you if you don't. I don't know that I did either. By this point, I had stopped reading the novel and I just watched the movie. And so I was learning a lot of this the way that the movie will tell us, which I think wisely keeps a lot of it. You want a mystery to tell you the stuff at the end. I mean, it's nice to figure out things along the way, but what we're seeing here is I, more or less, realizing, oh, I have a story that I'm unlocking, and then she's attacked. The girls are mad. They're afraid that they're going to be next. We have this sort of interesting scene where they break her windows, come at her. All the girls that were fawning and being like, you sing the solo, are now like, kill her!
Yeah, they push her down the stairs. I thought maybe she was going to break her neck and actually die. I wasn't sure where this movie was going.
I know. Yeah, that would be very J-horror to give her like a twisted head back, Exorcist style.
But Michi's there to save her. Michi's there to prove to them that she's not a ghost, she's real, and,
Yeah. And what better way to prove it than to give the only kiss of the movie? This is the only time you're going to see two girls plant their lips against each other. So it's a big, I think, probably for Japanese audiences particularly, this is a big, moment. But it's there not because it's romantic. It's there to prove that she's not cursed.
And things are starting to happen now, and things are almost getting whiplash starting to happen. Like earlier on, there was a quick scene of a funeral director or somebody who dresses bodies for funerals and does makeup. We saw some brushes and stuff. It was a guy and a gal that kind of looked like pop stars. They kind of had shiny clothes on. And
I call them the hipster embalmers, but they have names in the novel. Yeah, they have names and whole backstories in the novel, and I think they're used here much better. We don't need too much of them. They're there to dress the corpses, and the dude has some psychic powers. And after they've dressed the 5 dead girls for their funeral, they happen to run into Risa on the road and bring her back. This is where we're getting more information, right? He has psychic hands and can speak her mind, and she's basically saying that when you kiss the photo, this other girl that looks like Aya calls you to her. And so it sort of plants the seed in Aya and Michi's mind that if Michi kisses the photo, Aya can follow her to wherever her lookalike is and break this curse.
This is where I got a little bit lost. I mean, I think I'm following most of this, but Risa, I wasn't sure if she was one of the 5 girls that had died and now they found her reanimated, or if this was just an additional missing girl that we weren't worrying about at this point, or did she become cursed during all the hubbub of the funeral and nobody noticed she was gone? I guess I didn't keep tracks on Risa and who she was until this scene.
Yeah, Risa was the one that was engaged to the rich guy that was getting her nails done. At one point, she almost kissed the photo, and Itsuki pulled the photo away from her and kissed it herself. You may remember that she's like, you're not going to kiss her, I'm going to kiss her, and that's what killed her. She always was fated for death. She kind of wandered away into the forest. She was the one during the earthquake looking up at the trees. We didn't really know what happened to her. The point is, she never made it to see, well, I'll just go ahead and call her Maya. The look-alike Aya is Maya, who would be calling her to a special place in the forest. She never got there. She wound up wandering in this road, and so they brought her back.
But my question is was she one of the 5 girls that had died?
I don't think so. Yeah, they just kind of skim over the other deaths, right? We've seen 2 girls clearly die, and then 3 of them, whatever, hand-wavy.
Okay.
I was wondering about this too, that like we see a bunch of floating girls and I'm not sure how many even were dead. I think a lot.
Well, they only found 5 bodies by the river. The kid took a photo of 5 bodies, and the cops came and the news came, and they reported on 5, and there are 5 caskets. But as you've already pointed out, in that scene where the choir is there in the church, 30 girls fall over. So they've all seen the viral photo of Maya.
And they all kissed it, right? I mean,
well, some of them did, because that's the ones that are dead. You have to be tricked into kissing them, right? The only one that wanted that was Kasumi. But the other ones have to be tricked into, oh, I just thought I was wandering around in my day and I see Aya, and then she leans over, and suddenly before I know it, I've kissed the photo.
Right. But the point of this scene here is that Risa is speaking through the shaman and giving us the information we need to kind of kick this into the 3rd act, right? Because now where we're going to head is Michi is going to decide that she's going to willingly kiss the photo at midnight and go into this trance. And what they're going to do is her and I are going to tie each other together. And when she goes off unknowingly, walking wherever it is she is, Aya will be tied to her and they will follow and figure this out. And she'll pull her out at the right time.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of clever, a clever way of handling it. But you know what? You might try not going to sleep too, right? Like tying us up and then going to sleep together is like, no, you should probably try to stay awake and be ready because your knots aren't very good. And indeed, this rope that they're tied to breaks by the time they're in the middle of the forest and they're separated anyway.
And another earthquake happens during this time.
Yeah, that's, I think, what distracts Aya, and she just doesn't see where Michi wanders off to. And before she knows it, Takashi, the lone male on the grounds, comes running at her with a shovel and has knocked her out and throwing her in a water reserve.
so help me figure out a couple of things here with this, because I'm a little muddy on Takashi and why the girls died. Because you mentioned the girls had to kiss the photo, and if they kiss the photo, they die.
No, if they kiss the photo, they are drawn to Maya, because that's a photo of Maya, and Maya is in the water reserve. So they wander off to go there.
Okay, this makes a little bit more sense.
And they drown.
Yes, and on their way there, they might encounter a crazy-ass nun who doesn't want it getting out that Maya is in the reservoir and will drown them in the river where they will be found and photographed.
And she's doing this because she thinks her brother killed Maya a long time ago, so the brother's a lot older than he looks, I guess?
Okay, this is where it just sort of falls apart. In the novel, I even hesitate bringing this up because it's so confusing. The headmistress, in dealing with her dead lover, finds out that this nun who went to school there is a serial killer and is killing every girl that goes near Takashi, her brother. And I don't know why he's the Mac, because, again, he was in a car accident and has got a bum leg and is developmentally disabled. But apparently there's enough girls coming that she's chopping them up pretty frequently and is found in a pool of blood by the headmistress.
He's literally the only dude, that's why.
Yeah, and the pact that they make, and this is where the book really goes off in another level, is, hey, I'm required by my ghost lover to constantly be sacrificing girls at my school. And so I need help with that. Why don't you come work for me and help me pick them out? Because every 3 years, because I spent 3 years with this schoolgirl who's now dead, she's making me every 3 years kill a new girl. This is the book's version, not here in the movie at all. But that is why crazy serial nun is coming there and killing girls. And so, you talk about muddy, I could barely. Between the translation problems and just what I think is sloppy scripting of supporting characters I wasn't that into, I just really couldn't follow this. But the movie has wisely just turned it into, this nun is trying to cover up the crimes of her headmistress.
Okay, so that sort of answers my next question, is when she follows her brother, they're running away, he falls down an embankment and into the river and starts to drown. She goes to help him, but then there's other people.
The search party. So that's the search party that's been looking for missing girls, although many of them I think have been found in the river. But yes, the search party people are nearby. She was about to save him, and then she makes the dramatic choice of being like, you know what? We're guilty. She chooses to die and let her brother drown.
Right, but I guess the way it plays in the movie is it looks like she's letting her brother drown, and then she might have some other plan. But as we pan to the dead body of her brother, we also pan over and see that she is drowned as well.
Yeah, I hate these characters. I wish they weren't here. It's never going to be completely clear their utility. They were helpful when it was a mystery about what's going on. As you say, Arnie, you could look at them and think they're the evil people. In the end, they're not that evil or that important. They're a reason why every wandering girl that tries to go to Maya doesn't succeed. Because if they actually got to Maya, they might come back from all of this and live and just tell Maya's truth, which is that headmistress doesn't just metaphorically want her girls to die. She killed me.
I guess I don't understand how they would know that. Like, so they're committing more murders
Yes.
to cover up a murder that maybe somebody might stumble upon? It gets a little sloppy.
It's not very good.
I'm thinking because of the world this is taking place in, the ghost is basically going to give a deposition to the first person who gets there alive.
That's more or less what happens, right? Because when Aya is thrown in, before Takashi dies, he does get her into the water reservoir, and she's splashing around in the dark, and it's like her dream, and suddenly there's herself coming up. This is when we have the whole last data dump of, oh, it was Maya and Aya, and they came to this school. I now remember you. I had forgotten you in my shame, but now that you're here, I don't want to let you go. And we almost think for a second that Aya is going to choose to drown, as so many girls have done in these waters, drowned with a sister. Again, to me, this has felt much more like sisters making a suicide pact than gay lovers who aren't accepted by the world.
And here I was definitely getting that at the end because, yes, that sister didn't choose to die as a little girl, which we won't be told just yet. They're going to save the final explanation for a surprise reveal after the climax.
Yeah. Here's the thing, I'll applaud the movie for this. I thought it was painfully obvious what was going on, and then I got really weirded out about whatever's going on with this side nun and her developmentally disabled lover brother. I was like, what is going on with the movie? I thought we already knew everything. When the skeleton, the Maya dies and rots away, I thought, oh, okay, well, the movie's over, right? I did not anticipate that the headmistress would be confronted, or that she specifically had killed Maya in order to
Sacrifice?
Yeah, in this movie's version, she feels bad that her lover is alone, and rather than, finishing up that suicide thing, she decides it's easier to kill a 7-year-old twin and raise the other one than it is to kill yourself.
Oh, no, I took it as it wasn't she was trying to help her girlfriend's loneliness, but that the dead girlfriend was haunting her, and she wanted to be free of the curse. So she sacrificed the child selfishly to free herself from being haunted.
Yeah.
Okay. And yet she requires every year, and there's some kind of self-harming, I want to feel bad about this. She still has the girl sing the Ophelia song, right? Which is intentionally evoking the death by water that she didn't do.
Yeah, I mean, she's an evil person, right? So she likes some little foreshadowing. She helped the audience out.
Okay, it's interesting you take it that way. I took it as someone that feels real guilty about not following through and wishes she had, and for some reason thought it was easier to kill a child than to be with someone that maybe she wanted to be. I don't know.
I feel like some of those themes were thrust upon Aya, right? As she's realizing that her dreams are actually a repressed memory, she starts feeling this guilt towards what happened with her and her sister as she remembers it more. And it's not until after she has that encounter in the water with her sister that her sister releases her and she gets saved that she remembers how it actually went down, where she tried to save Maya and actually had her hand on her until the nun pushed it away.
Yeah. Right. Very clearly, the headmistress would not allow Maya to live, and it did buy them some time, but all it really did was mean that Maya, for the next 12 years, was calling out to girls and cursing them, having them kiss her photo so that she could tell them her wrong death. And if we hadn't hired that serial killer nun, it would have come out 10 years before.
Wouldn't it have just been better if it was cleaner and the headmistress was doing all the murders? I mean, we know she's fine with killing a little girl to save herself. Now she could kill more little girls to save her secret. Instead of this weird, I thought my brother did it, but my brother is actually the innocent person, but I'm drowning my brother like he's Lenny from Of Mice and Men, but he actually didn't do anything wrong. I mean...
Yeah.
You can still have the red herring characters, but don't necessarily need to turn them into murderers themselves at the end.
Yeah, you needed these for color, for maybe, yes, creating red herrings and false paths for thinking what's going on, but I don't like how they were utilized in this finale. It is very muddy, it is very unclean. But you know what? I do kind of like this last moment here. After this all comes out, and it doesn't sound like the headmistress is going to pay for this, right?
She just has confessed to Mary, but who listens to Mary?
Right, exactly. This is going to continue. The old students are leaving. New students are coming. They're whispering about rumors of Aya. So it's possible there could have been a sequel. There wasn't, but they could have picked this up with new students. Maybe this perpetuates on. But for our main characters, Michi and Aya, they are going to go on to adulthood. They have a moment where you think they're going to kiss. Maybe we'll stay together. But it all comes through in the camera lens, right? Hanging out with Aya is like hanging out with a bunch of dead girls.
Yep, we get a reminder that we're in a Fatal Frame movie, right? We see through the lens that there's some ghost girls in the frame too, and it's somewhat poetic that Aya has not been photographed this whole time, and she won't hear either,
Yeah, no mementos of these school days. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm like, now that there's all these other ghost girls around, do they need to be avenged? Are they going to be cursing people until the headmistress is revealed? I mean...
Yeah, I think so, Arnie. I think sequel-minded, if this had been a bigger hit, yeah, that's exactly where you could go with that if you wanted to keep doing this.
But would you want them to? Justin, Stuart, do you recommend Fatal Frame? Justin.
Considering we're in the arcade here, I will say right up top, we've seen way worse, right? We've seen things that have nothing to do with the game that they're inspired by, and it just becomes garbage. But we've also seen movies that veer away from the games and have been good. And here, it's obvious they veered away from the games. Like, this could have been anything other than a Fatal Frame movie. It did not need that title at all. Like, It didn't take the tropes from that game. It tried to throw in a few lenses here and there to kind of say, oh yeah, remember? But I think you just have to put that to the side, right? Am I reviewing this because I liked the game or because we're in the arcade? I don't know. But what I will say about this movie is I feel like it would benefit me to watch it again, to pick up on some of these things I missed and didn't understand the first time. And now that I know what the flavor is, maybe I would catch more from it, enjoy it more. But I think it's kind of damning to sit here and say that I had the opportunity to watch it again, but I chose not to. And I think that says a lot about this movie, is that it's not horrible. It's shot well. I think it's acted well. We talked about the score earlier, and even though it might be stolen, it was very atmospheric. And I think there's some poetry here. I think there's some themes here that it messes with. And I think it does a good job at a lot of it. But at the end of the day, what it is just kind of a lackluster mystery cosplaying as a ghost story. And it didn't do either one of them incredibly well. Like, if it's going to be a ghost story, I want to get drawn into that. And when they were trying to bring me into the ghost story, I was more concerned with the mystery. I was looking at who suspects might be and who might be involved in this. And it never even crossed my mind that they really were building up to an actual ghost story with a real murder. So at the end of the day, for me, it just doesn't pay off. It's an hour and 45 of runtime, and while I'm in it, I'm enjoying it. But by the time it's over, I'm just like, It wasn't terrible, it wasn't great, it wasn't fun enough to brown arrow it, but it's also something that I'm just afraid I'm going to forget about in a month and not think about again. So for that, I'm just going to give it a mild not recommend.
Stuart.
I totally get where you're at. I feel torn about it as well. I'm kind of trapped between the fact that I find thematically this is a really interesting thing. I've never contemplated girls' school, same-sex attraction and how that could play out in a ghost story way. I think they have really something interesting here. It's a metaphor about hiding your emotions and fears of growing up. And I think I'm really tapped in, and it probably helped that I had some of this coming from the book as well, tapped into what this movie's trying to do, and then really also bumping up with the fact that the filmmaking is very pedestrian. That overall, this is not a particularly well-made film. And yes, what's best about it feels stolen from Suspiria and Lynch, and it's not great. Yeah, it's not bad, and it's not great, and we're right there where we're so often kind of in this middle. I guess what I will say is I guess I'm feeling generous. I found enough here that it held my interest during the runtime. I don't know that I would watch it again as well. I didn't play the game. I do think that that probably will factor into your feelings about this. If you came for the game, this ain't the game. But if you have a passing interest in J-horror and maybe just like gothic romance, you know, they got a new Wuthering Heights coming up. It's like that, you know, it's got atmosphere, it's got moodiness. And if you're kind of a goth and wanting to know what to watch for Valentine's Day, you could do worse than Fatal Frame. I'm going to give it a mild recommend.
So there's a few problems I have with this movie. And the biggest one is that taking the movie for what it is, it's a copy of a copy of a copy. I mean, the story of a murdered person who won't leave the scene of a crime until they're vindicated, we've covered that many times. It's a well-trod story. We covered it in Stephen King's Bag of Bones. We covered it sort of in that Stephen King Rose Red. There's the book and the movie, The Lovely Bones. There's Beloved, Sixth Sense, Crimson Peak, yeah, even The Ring and to a degree Candyman are all the same story about a person wrongly killed who then haunts and gets revenge and wants their name cleared. And yeah, this one adds in some girl crushes and puts it in Japan, but that's just set dressing. This movie is a fairly uninventive retread of the tropes in those other films. So the story we're seeing in this movie has been done often and better. But that's judging it as, we say, a supernatural drama, not even as a horror film, because this movie doesn't use any of what makes the Fatal Frame games more interesting. Putting it in the 1980s would have been cool, but no, they didn't make it a period piece. There's no horror. There's no camera as your protective weapon. There's no demons coming through a hellmouth and sacrificial. The lore of the games is interesting enough to make into a movie, and it would have been really unique. Instead, they took the name of the game and made this Fatal Lame drama. I think it's a mid-movie, but it is an awful Fatal Frame movie. But I mean, it's just not bad. I was into the movie for the first 30 minutes or so. It is one of the better video game movies.
It definitely is, yeah.
But it's just not good enough for me to recommend. I found it confusing and then dull. So, no, I recommend the game. I liked the game. And I liked the story of the game. So the best thing coming out of this review is that I got a chance to explore the world of the game and realize I like it. It's kind of cool. It's really difficult, but it's kind of cool. But no, forget this movie.
Well, you may get what you're asking for, Arnie. It should be said DreamWorks is no more, and Spielberg no longer has the rights to this. It has passed on to Samuel Hadida, who is the man who has made movies out of both Resident Evil and Silent Hill. And he has hired Christopher Gans, the director of the first Silent Hill and the movie we watched last week, to adapt this property. I suspect if they ever accomplish that, it will follow game trope and gameplay much more closely.
Yeah, I don't think that's too much to ask, right? You're going to take the name of a game, have somebody on your team play the game, and then bring you notes. I'm not asking you to be a huge fan of the game. Just have an idea of what you're adapting.
Boy with a camera is probably not enough. I'll concede to that.
I think it says something that during Arnie's plot summary, all the interesting stuff that he said all took place in the last 10 minutes of the movie.
It's got pacing problems, without a doubt.
I will say, though, I liked some of the dream sequence stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I liked when you didn't know what was real.
Yeah.
Honestly, once Aya came out of her room, I became far less interested in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It really climaxed for me with all the girls passing out, and then it became this different, dull, dramatic mystery that I just never could get into.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything that anybody is saying here. I just think I liked it a little bit more than you guys. And I think it helped that I had some extra with that book. And I like part of the book. Again, it's not a recommend for the book. I think this movie is actually a better distillation of what the book was trying to say. But the book kind of contextualizes what might be hard to otherwise understand.
And I might have enjoyed this movie a little more. I probably still wouldn't recommend it under any circumstances. But if I'd never played the game, then I wouldn't have had false expectations of what this movie should or would be.
Well, you thought it was going to be Mortal Kombat first, so I imagine it's been quite head-spinning to wind up where we're at. Let's take a break from video games. I think we've done enough.
Please!
We'll be back in April because there is the Super Mario Galaxy movie that everyone but us is excited about. Instead, we're kind of getting back to Universal classic monster movies. Next week, a Dracula movie that isn't Universal, but hey, it's coming out in theaters. It had a big release last summer. It's Luc Besson, the stylish French director who was known for La Femme Nikita and The Professional and Lucy. Let's just see how Dracula is in his hands. It's coming out in theaters right now, this weekend. We'll have the review next Tuesday. And after that, into the Bride of the Frankenstein movies.
Yep, it has Christoph Waltz in it, too. So Christoph Waltz did Frankenstein last year, doing Dracula this year. So it may be a movie you haven't heard of, but it's not a cheapo film. It's a known director with known actors. So hopefully you join us for that review. Meanwhile, this Friday, we are returning to The Cabin in the Woods. No, we're not at the Evil Dead remake yet. We're at The Strangers, with The Strangers Chapter 1, the third movie in the franchise.
Yeah, I'll be knocking on the door with you guys this time around, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, I like home invasion movies. I don't like Rennie Harlan. We'll see how it goes. You know, what's kind of funny about it is I think The Strangers is celebrated for how much it doesn't tell us. It barely made 90 minutes. I don't know how you stretch that into a trilogy, and I don't know why you get Rennie Harlan to do that, but we'll start that journey this Friday. For the next 3 Fridays in a row, we'll be going through all 3 chapters.
So you can join us with the Don't Be a Stranger donation level using PayPal at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate, or if you are a platinum level patron on Patreon. So thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for interacting with us on our Facebook group or our Reddit or X or wherever you are. And until next time, game over.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Now Playing Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com each week for another new movie review podcast. The opinions expressed on Now Playing are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the opinion of Venganza Media Incorporated. Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with the motion pictures reviewed or otherwise referred to herein. All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review and no infringement is intended. Now Playing Podcast is an exclusive trademark of Venganza Media Incorporated and may not be used without the expressed written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved. Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2026, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
A quasi-schoolgirl lesbian drama going to be something that people play. I mean, all right, I can imagine how people would play with that, but it doesn't seem like a mainstream game.
Yeah, in fact, there was a sale recently on Steam for games, and there were a number of Japanese hentai games that were in the sale pile that were not in my cart because I don't know, there's just something weird about that for me.
Yeah, but let me dial into this, because I don't believe that this is erotica.